Aki, man, I came across your content on TikTok and I think you're crushing it, bro. I think you're doing a lot of good
Thanks.
work. What got you into the AI space?
Yeah, so it started with actually a service I began in 2023. So I started basically a content editing, digital marketing related service, helping small business owners edit their content. So I noticed I was using a lot of AI tools for it, and my background is um, in business incubation. I had some digital marketing work that I'd been doing prior to then, and so honestly, when I started that service, it was a way of kind of like bringing together like my skills from earlier on together.
Hmm.
But I was using a lot of AI tools for it. That's when I came across like things like Opus Clip and some of the AI tools that were kind of like super popular at that time on the market. And as I was learning how to market myself better online, I started getting into areas like lead generation, automation, and it was all very much linked to this AI as these LLMs and systems were starting to catch fire. And that all really just led me down that rabbit hole to the point where the focus shifted to more so like helping others with AI systems and like how to implement it into their businesses. And that's kind of how I've landed in space now. And so what I'm working on is a company called Pentridge Media,
Hmm.
which is helping entrepreneurs and service businesses create AI systems.
Wow. So you've been in the space pretty much since it really began to pop off. That's when I got into the space too, but not like you. You hit the ground running, man. I was just dabbling, exploring. I've created some chatbots back in the day, but never sold it to any company, just did it all for fun. And I've just progressively, gotten better over time. And
Yeah.
now I'm actually selling services and stuff.
So
But you started off in the content creation space. I
yeah.
want to get some clarity on this. Did you have any technical background before diving into the AI world?
So I would say that I'm to an extent technically inclined. Like
Mhm.
I've realized that over time, but not as far as AI goes. I worked on a podcast prior to that, and I worked on this podcast called the Pepper Soup Talk Show for a little bit over 3 years, around tying the African diaspora, like African culture together. Like I mentioned, my family's from Nigeria, uh, and I did it with a few partners. I was the person who was sort of tasked with the editing process of that,
Mhm.
and I learned through that time like how to put together a podcast, and even it's like the some of the nuances and like like as you know, and as I'm sure you're seeing in this process, like it's like it takes a lot for it to like really like
Mhm.
the scheduling, the editing, and all of it. So through that process, definitely as far as like media and the online space goes, I got really into like editing and like the technical aspects of that. And then, my background, like I studied biology in school,
Oh
so
wow.
like there's that aspect of things. I've done like technician type work prior to that, but as far as AI, this was definitely fresh for me, being in the space and more so like the interest I had in emerging technologies and I just wanted to dive in and really like understand like how to utilize it.
Wow, man. So you
Yeah,
have kind of a wide variety in your background, which is really
yeah,
cool. How would you say that's helped you out now? Because I know that for me personally, I had this breakthrough. It was a couple days ago that you can watch all these videos on how to create your own automation, but where the
yeah,
real skill comes into play is your ability to pull from other experiences and
mm,
be creative with how you're designing these workflows. So,
yeah.
how would you say that's influenced your work?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think that any sort of like existing experiences you have or subject matter expertise or exposure you've had to particular industries is very helpful, especially right now, because as you get further into building out these workflows and creating these systems, you start to see where some of the nuances are and how, for example, like if you're working with a real estate company, it helps to have like have had some sort of exposure to real estate to know like where the needs really may be. Because in a lot of cases, especially like from like the business sense, if you're dealing with clients and companies, they in a lot of cases don't really care so much about the AI itself. It's more so like they want to improve the performance of their business, or they want to know like how this is going to help them, be better, save time, whatever the case may be. So being able to like have some sort of like connection or tie into like what the needs really are is very helpful. And you can learn that even if you don't necessarily have a background in a particular space, but it definitely gives you a leg up, or at least like helps you start off like not from ground zero if you have like existing experiences or something that's tangential to it.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, man. And that also leads me to this, that I think that there's a big misconception when it comes to employees that their roles are going to be taken and eliminated by AI. We're actually seeing a lot of the opposite now with like
Yeah.
Klarna, I believe is how you pronounce them, where they tried to replace a lot of their human customer service with AI. And they were like, all right, made a mistake. We got to reverse this. So going with that, what I'm hearing is, okay, you got to have knowledge in the industry that you're in somewhat. You got to have a foundation. You got to be a problem solver and creative, which then means your average employee in a business, if they take their skill set and their knowledge in that industry, they could actually improve their company and learn how to do some automations themselves, as opposed to waiting on the business owner to decide to do something. They could take an initiative and show the business owner, hey, this is how you could automate something, and I could help you manage it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's definitely how I see things. I believe that mindset is extremely important, because there is definitely one side of how people are looking at it where it's very fear-based. AI is coming to steal my job. You either might be resistant to it, or you're like, okay, it is what it is. And then on the other side of it, which is kind of where I believe it's more so is right now and trending towards, is if you have that subject matter expertise, you are like in prime position to now learn some of these tools and tech to enhance what you're already doing, increase your output, and so on and so forth. I will say, I do feel like we have to acknowledge that AI ultimately will replace some things, and over time, but even in that, if you're someone who is working for a company, or is in a particular industry as a business owner, and you're learning these technologies right now, you're going to be able to, one, understand how to have a competitive advantage right now, but then two, you're going to be able to identify where a lot of the opportunities are, like, because you've been staying abreast with where things have gone. And so I say all that to say, I think your mindset around AI is extremely important right now. It's like how you're seeing it and looking at it more as, okay, how do you leverage this versus like resisting what is inevitable.
Yeah. And you definitely raise a good point that yes, some things are going to be replaced, i.e. people from jobs. That is definitely going to happen. But what's also going to happen is those people who may get displaced, they may find other opportunities because of, if they decide to skill up, right? So like it's not necessarily a zero-sum game. It's just that the job market's going to be evolving, and the economy at scale is going to be changing, where you're going to have a lot of these businesses that can generate tons of revenue with a couple employees, which is good for the businesses and the employees, because that means there's a bigger portion of the pie to go around to everyone. And it also makes it easier for somebody who maybe has never started a business before to start a business, because a lot of things could be automated and alleviate a lot of that load.
For sure.
Right. So, man, like, what would you say are some good places for people to maybe start if they were looking into, hey, I'm really curious about AI, don't really know where to begin? Where would be some places that you would like point them to?
Yes. So I would start by saying that I believe that initial step is uh, the large language models. Usually, it's usually ChatGPT for most people, and I'll admit that ChatGPT does have the best user experience still, in my opinion. Although we're seeing so many different platforms come out, and I think that becoming used to using it, and over time you starts to become second nature. You start going to ChatGPT to bounce ideas back and forth. To something I love doing is uploading transcripts from meetings, calls, and like literally like having like almost like brainstorm sessions, and it's like you're communicating with this intelligence that just knows everything. Um, and so yeah, that's where I would start. I would start with ChatGPT, and I think most people usually start by leveraging it like a search engine, or like putting together plans. So looking at it from your daily life standpoint, of if you're someone who goes to the gym, using it to put together workout plans. If you're someone who's cooking light, using it to put together, deciding what recipes to get, and what you should be getting from the grocery store, ingredients, and then take it from there to your professional life, or business life, and identifying ways that you can use it to make writing easier, make some of the data analysis you made easier if your position or work involves that. And then as it becomes more of a second nature kind of thing, where you start going to it, it's like naturally, then you start seeing how it can just enhance your life in more nuanced kinds of ways. And I believe you probably saw, like, I put out a digital playbook called "We Are All Now Programmers," which is a primer on AI and these automated workflows. And I talk about some of these things, and the kind of tools that I believe are really just changing everything right now. And it's been really cool just to be a part of.
Right. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
very exciting to be a part of.
yeah.
I actually heard from the CEO of Windsurf, the company
Mm,
OpenAI just acquired, on a
yeah.
Y Combinator interview they had. And he said something very similar to what you just said. He just said everybody in the future will be builders, but he said builders, not programmers, which
Yeah,
it's almost the same thing in a way, like,
yeah.
which is very interesting. So it's cool that you had that insight, man.
Sure.
What would you say is like the biggest misconception that you're hearing these days, whether it be something that may be misleading regarding AI, or just something that you feel is not really understood or just misconceived?
Misconception about AI. So I would say that when you hear the term artificial intelligence, especially if you're someone who hasn't been exposed to it, immediately you probably think this is complicated, or this is super like intense, or this is like probably going to go above my head. But in the last few years, especially as this space has gotten and it's becoming more and more democratized, and then you use some of these tools like the chat GPTs, the tech tools that are out here. You start to see that like it's becoming democratized, so it's something that you will be able to pick up more easily than you realize. And a lot of the like the like super technical parts of it are being abstracted out over time. I have a friend who uh, he and I speak very frequently, and he knows how deep the rabbit hole I'm in with regard to AI and some of the things that I'm doing. And I've talked to him about like a lot of these tools, and I say like, hey, man, you've got to try this, or you've got to try that. And I believe in his head, it was like the learning curve is going to be so like vast or drastic. Whereas when he actually decided to pick up a tool like V0 by Vercel, which for those who are unfamiliar, is like an AI co-pilot tool that you can build landing pages and websites with. When he decided to try it out, he was like, "Man, this is like I should have done this a year ago," and this is someone who actually even worked in tech, which is like ironic. So I say that just being like embracing the space and understanding that it's being democratized, and so like this whole idea of again, we are all now programmers, or we are all now builders. Like, you can translate the ideas that you have, and you can leverage technology in ways that just wasn't possible just a few years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely changed drastically in the past 2 years from what I've seen. Because when I
Yeah,
started out just building out basic chatbots, it
yeah,
was it felt to me very complicated.
yeah,
It was a way different than now. Now I go into NAN or Make, and
yeah,
super simple to create your agent. Now, depending on what you have the task to, it can be more complicated.
for
But
sure.
just getting started and building basic stuff is
Yeah,
super simple. Like I firmly believe I can start teaching my children how to do this
yeah,
like here in like a year. Like it's kind of crazy in how easy it's gotten. So I do agree that it has kind of been democratized in that way.
for sure.
Um, and you had mentioned earlier that you kind of got your start in the content creation space back in 2023. That's when you kind of discovered a lot of these AI tools. What
Yeah,
do you think about now with these new models that are coming out that can
yeah.
generate images, videos, all from a prompt?
It honestly blows my mind every single week. I feel like there's always like one moment where I'm just like, this is crazy. Like, this is that's possible. This week was especially big week. I know you had sent me the Google keynote from the I/O, which I appreciate you sending it over. There've been a couple of things I've launched even just this week that it's, and you talked about chatbots a little bit earlier on, and it's every week is like, this is like the most difficult, or like the least advanced it's going to be, and because we're still in the earlier stages. And so I'm always excited when something new launches that like makes a significant impact on the work that I'm currently doing.
Mhm.
So, for example, Google launched all their stuff with the video, which, like, I mean, what you're able to do now as far as like put together film, like, or commercial or content work is it's going to be extremely powerful. But then also from the coding standpoint too, like, Anthropic put out Claude, Sonnet, and Opus 4,
Mhm.
which I haven't had a chance to try yet. I'm going to today, but it's I'm looking forward to seeing how that improves my work with everything I'm doing around like AI and coding, like building apps
Yep.
and workflows in that way. And so yeah, it's like honestly like Christmas every week in that
Yeah.
regard. And I see both sides to it as far as the implications of moving so fast when this comes to AI and impact of society. But like, as someone who is super just into tinkering and experimenting with the tech and applying it to what you're doing, like, it's just like, it's incredible, man. It's incredible.
It's so incredible.
Yeah,
The one thing that I am kind of leery of is all of the new AI companies coming out. I know that that's a good sign that there's a ton of innovation going on because things can
yeah,
happen so quickly with the new technology. But I also heard a clip from Elon Musk. I think it was yesterday or a couple days ago, where he was also expressing a concern of AI startups because you need to have really good talent
yeah,
and you need to have a lot of capital, like
mm,
in order to build something significant, because the compute cost is
mm,
insane still.
yeah,
Which he was saying that he said something absurd, like you would need something like $250 million just in like server costs to like
wow,
actually build one of these good AI companies, and you need to
yeah,
have the talent there. So right now, I bring in all this up because I kind of want your take on this too. There are a lot of AI companies being created at the moment.
mm,
Not a lot of them will stay.
yeah,
And because there's so many new ones coming out, there is this sense of overwhelmingness in a way,
yeah,
because you're like, I can't keep up. But
yeah,
I don't know that that'll be forever, especially when you see something like Google with that
mm,
keynote they gave, how they're kind of it's like they just created a whole monopoly over the space overnight. We'll see
yeah,
how it actually pans out in real life. The demos can show one thing, but reality will show another, maybe.
yeah,
And you have OpenAI acquiring IO, which is a
mm,
hardware device company, which they
yeah,
are going to be more physical with their AI. So with that, like, how would you say people should approach, like, okay, there's all these new tools coming out. Probably a lot of them won't be around in a
Yeah,
while, or a lot of them will get acquired by these bigger companies.
yeah,
So kind of like, what's your take on that?
yeah. No, for sure. I think you make a good point around just the cost of running some of these models and building some, depending on the kind of company that you're building. So I feel like if you're on the infrastructure level, then it gets very costly. If you're like an open AI, or you're building like the GPUs and on that level, I feel like if you're on the application layer, where you're leveraging open AIs, APIs, and these other platforms, then the barrier is significantly lower. I think that because it's becoming way easier to build now, we're all builders, then the value of like what you offer and bring to the table is in other areas. And so it's around, how are you able to create distribution? Like, how are you able to, do you have own media? Who like are you partnering with? What is the feel of what you're doing? Like, are you able to build trust with like an audience? Are you able to build community? I feel like these are the areas that are going to start to matter more and more, and it's going to take uh, a shift, like a paradigm shift in how people see businesses and like where the value is, for that to kind of fully occur. But it's happening, gradually. And then when you see, like, for example, uh, Anthropic, I feel like this is a big moment with Claude, releasing what they did, because now it's easier now than it was just a week ago in order to roll out a web app, for example. And so it's going to happen gradually, but that's where you have to really be thinking about, okay, what differentiates, if everyone is able to build an app, then like where is the value like truly coming from? But that's something that does happen over time, but something to be thinking about if you're building, like, be thinking about the other areas outside of like the product itself.
Yeah, and that has me thinking, like, what will actually happen to the AI agency model over time? Because a lot
Yeah,
of these bigger players, I think, like OpenAI and Google, they're going to be at enterprise level, basically doing what the AI agencies rather are doing on the small to medium scale.
yeah,
But who's to say that just won't trickle down to every business?
yeah,
So what's your take on that, man? Like, how do you
yeah,
see the space evolving?
yeah. Not for sure. So the way I see it, and part of it is based off of just what I'm observing right now, which there's a there's a huge gap forming between those who are staying up on AI, whether you're someone who's like deep into it, or even someone who's just using it casually, versus those who haven't embraced it at all. It's like there's a big AI native versus AI non-native gap forming, and I think I was reading somewhere just like the other day, where I was saying that if all development and progress stopped right now, that it would take 5 years to implement, um, what where the technology is right now into the economy and into these different industries. And so what that tells me is that uh, that that may be the case, and that may happen, and you may see OpenAI start eating up these other companies. They just bought Windsurf, right? Maybe Cursor gets acquired. I don't know. Who knows kind of what is going to happen, but there's still going to be a gap around just information and how to effectively apply that information. And so I believe one of the real opportunities as time goes on is going to be like those who are educating on AI, and like helping those kind of get up to speed.
Mhm.
And so I definitely see things going in that direction. And then, we'll see what happens as far as like the big these like big monster companies and the impact on small, medium-sized businesses. But I think for the foreseeable future, that is definitely where like opportunity is for people who are building like AI agencies or AI powered business companies. like helping small, medium-sized businesses that aren't, um, necessarily on that like, enterprise level. Something that uh, I've said is that like being able to like offer like an enterprise level service to like small, medium-sized business, because at the same time, with these agents and tools and whatnot, as a small business, you can operate at a much higher level. And now you're able to create systems in a way where you can not have to be, like feel like you're constantly under resourced, or feel like you can't, like if I had this, or if I had that, if I had this amount of capital, I could do much more. Like the tech allows you and it's allowing you to, over time as it gets better, to operate on like a higher level, or perform with a higher level. And then you brought it up very early in our conversation that we're gonna start seeing more and more businesses that only have a few people be able to produce what would have taken 20, 30, 50, 100 or whatever a number of people to get to the level that they end up getting to. So I think a lot of it's we're gonna kind of see how it shakes out. But I think there's gonna be a lot tied to the gap that we see that we're seeing right now, that will continue to widen as the tech speeds up, but isn't necessarily being implemented fully in organizations yet.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that this was a big opener for me. So I have been in the business world for a while now. I had a commercial cleaning company I built and sold last year, and then I've started several other companies throughout my life. And one of the patterns I've realized, especially being a digital native, is once you start seeing a bunch of people teach how to start a business model, that usually means that business model is heavily saturated, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because that means that there's a proven market there. So if you can find your way in, you can make money. There's money to be made in a saturated market. But it also means that it's becoming more commoditized. And if you're seeing what the people who are educating on the AI agency space, what they're now selling and making most of their money from is the educational part, not so much the service part, which goes into what you're saying. And that is, the bigger gap is in education, which that's what I noticed. And I switched my model real quickly from going from an agency to more consultancy. So just consulting, because education is the biggest gap. And if you want implementation, that can be done. But the main thing that's being sold and given with value for free sometimes is like this right here, is just the educational part. And you're seeing even the big guys in the AI agency space now switching over to mostly education, which is quite interesting.
No, absolutely. And I say with that, when we think about how the economy is also changing, whether it comes to competitiveness of finding jobs, when it comes to jobs that are being, layoffs that are happening, or jobs that are being cut off, and a lot of it hasn't happened yet, and that may take some time. But I believe the nature of work is going to change. So seeing more people who are, whether it's freelancing, whether it's building their own businesses, whether it's building small companies, it may not be everyone who's like trying to hit it, big with like, this like $1 billion company, but I feel like we'll start to see more companies that are kind of like maybe the level of like what one would have done in like a traditional employment. So like navigating that change in the nature of work because of AI, I believe is also like a space that needs to be tackled for people, and where there's going to be people looking for direction around that as well.
Yeah,
those who have kind of figured it out, and would be benefit.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that there's a huge opportunity that is not being met right now by a lot of people, especially people that are younger, because they want to, especially if they're entrepreneurial, typically want to start an online business and they want to do
Yeah.
everything online. I think the huge opportunity that is being missed by those people is the fact that if you just go talk to your local businesses, you go get into your local community, actually show that you're a real person, there's
Yeah.
going to be so many opportunities that open up. For example, like I've just started doing like really starting my business in the past 2 months, and I have really started to get my face out there in my community. Now, granted, I have a lot of built-in infrastructure for my network because I had a commercial
Yeah.
cleaning company in the same city. So I know a lot of business owners. I'm in with a lot of the Chamber of Commerce and a lot of those things. So I had some built-in infrastructure there.
Yeah.
But once I made the pivot to doing what I'm now doing and I got back out into the public space, opportunities just started unfolding for me. Like cities want me to come speak with their governments. They want me to do
Wow.
speeches and they don't even like, and the thing is that they just know that I do AI and I can explain
Yeah.
it to them and what I do. And I'm not even like, I wouldn't call myself an expert by any means, but because I actually know how to use the tools and I've been using them for years,
Yeah.
that gap is so wide between me and them, it appears that I'm an expert.
Yeah.
And so they're like, all right, we're going to give you a ton of opportunities because this is something we want to start learning. So I feel like there's a huge opportunity even in just tapping into your local markets.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's not talked about. That's actually not, that's rarely ever talked about. Because most of the focus typically is what you can do online. But yeah, like your local community is definitely something that people should explore.
I think it's a hidden gem for most people. I think so
Yeah.
many people, they just learn a lot of the basics, how to prompt well, how to use everything in ChatGPT. Just doing that, by the way, that's one thing I've learned talking to a lot of these business owners this past week
Yeah.
is most of them are just trying to figure out how to use ChatGPT to make their work a little bit easier, which is
Yeah.
like the tip of the iceberg, but
Yeah.
there's a lot you can do with ChatGPT as well. So you can go deep
Sure.
with it. And for example, like one of the speeches I plan on giving in June, I met with the person putting together the event yesterday, and she and I were kind of brainstorming what we wanted the topic to be on. And I had this elaborate idea of, okay, I'll show them how to make automations, I'll introduce them to
Yeah.
some of these other tools. And we just simply narrowed it down to no, these people don't even know anything about AI.
Yeah.
So let's just show them how to open up ChatGPT. Let's show them how to do
Yeah.
some basic prompting, maybe give
Yeah.
them a prompt template, maybe show them how to make a custom GPT and
Yeah.
just how to set the tone for it. And that was really eye opening to me that, like, wow, a lot of
Yeah.
people aren't even aware that
Yeah.
you can take this a step further and
Right.
have it do all the work for you.
Yeah. There are really levels to it, and when you've been very immersed in it, you can lose sight of where really the average person is in it, like the layperson who isn't really into tech or the space.
100%. So, man, what would you say are like some of the skills young people and even older people should be learning right now so they don't get left behind and they can kind of start staying ahead of the curve?
So I would say, prompting is huge. Just how to, and as time goes on, it gets easier to prompt because some of that work is done for you by the platform. But I would say just knowing how to communicate with these large language models to get the output that you're looking for, which just takes time and comfort using it enough. I really like the voice feature for the microphone feature for the LLMs. So like a lot of time, most of the time now, I'm actually speaking to it and doing like the voice to text, and that's usually how I'm going about it. I think that's huge. That in and of itself is huge, especially when it now it can do web search, it can go to outside sources. So like much productivity comes from being able to communicate effectively with LLMs. I would also say that these AI co-pilots are that's what is the most fascinating to me, and the area that I'm the most just like immersed in, and I believe more people should start taking a look at those. I'm not seeing all that much conversation happen around it, minus like the super niche spaces, but platforms like Lovable, Replit, Cursor. These platforms are, Manus. It's when it comes to the ability to build or take an idea and bring it to life. It's just really phenomenal. I've been embracing this concept of I say creation over consumption. Of like, I feel like we're in a space where people want to see like either what you've done or what you can do or what you can build. So whether we're talking about starting a business or applying for jobs, like if you're applying for a job, I've seen, so I have a YouTube channel, and I've seen more opportunities with my business come from my YouTube channel than anything else. And so I'll even say to people, like, let's say if you're applying for a job, I would like encourage someone to put together like a resume, like, rather than like a regular resume, you can still have that, but maybe create an online portfolio. Like maybe you leverage these tools to show like something experiential and like get creative with it. And I feel like that is something that can just like set you apart as a young person, depending on what you're looking to do, applying for jobs, starting businesses, just making yourself competitive in the marketplace.
That's such great advice, because I think today it is also very competitive to get a job. People are seeing that right now. And one of the ways to stand out as opposed to your traditional resumes is just say, what if let's say you are somebody who studied marketing. Yeah. You don't have to be like the greatest marketer ever to just put out content on what you know about marketing or what you know about sales or operations or HR. If you start making videos around these, one, you may be, or just written content, you may be surprised that you get opportunities to be a freelancer or actually start your own business, or you get an opportunity to work for a company that you may have not otherwise been deemed qualified for, just because you're actually displaying your knowledge for public consumption.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's really smart, especially if you can incorporate some things that you're learning to do in that role with AI. And then that would make you even more, I think, valuable to a company if you're, because everybody's not an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is definitely not the path for most people. It's very stressful. It's hard. It's not as glamorous as people make it out to be.
Yeah.
A lot of the times you're very poor before you get even a little bit of money, before you start making just what you would make if you got your regular 9-to-5 job. So just being able to do those things and focusing on growing your personal brand in whatever domain you work in, I think is so important these days.
For sure.
Yeah. So, man, where can people find you if they're like, I want Aki, he seems like a super smart guy, I want him to automate some shit inside my business? Like, what do they have to do to reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm all over social media. My website is pentridgemedia.com. I have a YouTube channel. It's my full name, Akinyemi Bajulai, on YouTube, or youtube.com @SirAkinB. Also SirAkinB everywhere else on social media except X/Twitter. I'm actually DeFi _Poppy. I'm super into like that, like blockchain, Web3 world too.
Nice.
So yeah, that's where everywhere I'm at. And then I'll also say, just to shameless plug my digital playbook. We are all now programmers. I just put that out, and I talk about a lot of just around beginning with AI and the AI space, but also just like how to like leverage these, like especially AI co-pilots, and also just like debunking certain like the hype versus like what's practical in businesses right now as well, like when it comes to agents and what they can do and what they can't do right now and where it's going. So definitely go check that out too. And that's everything, I think.
For sure. I'll be sure to put that in the description below, so that way everybody, they want to check you out, they have an easy way to do so. But it's been a pleasure speaking to you, man. I hope we can do this again.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I really love connecting. It was a great conversation. And